And if you have your Bibles, go to that real familiar book of Hosea. Maybe it's not real familiar, but go to the book of Hosea this morning. Hosea chapter 1. The message today is called Running from Redemption. We're going to dive into it, and this story always has stuck out to me as over the last few years as I've learned about it. But Hosea chapter 1. All right, let's go there. Starting with verse 2, it says, when the Lord first began speaking to Israel through Hosea, Hosea is a prophet, he said to him, go and marry a prostitute so that some of her children will be conceived in prostitution. This will illustrate how Israel has acted like a prostitute by turning against the Lord and worshiping other gods. Now let's keep that in mind, but let's go forward a little bit. So Hosea married Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim, and she became pregnant and gave Hosea a son. And the Lord said, name the child Jezreel, for I'm about to punish King Jehu's dynasty to avenge the murders he committed at Jezreel. In fact, I will bring an end to Israel's independence. And I will break its military powers in the Jezreel Valley. Soon Gomer became pregnant again and gave birth to a daughter. And the Lord said to Hosea, name your daughter Lo-Ruhamah, or Ruhamah. Not loved is what that means, for I will no longer show the love to the people of Israel or forgive them. But I will show love to the people of Judah. I will free them from their enemies, not with weapons and armies of horses and charioteers, but by my power as the Lord God. As the Lord their God. And after Gomer had weaned Lo-Ruhamah, she again became pregnant and gave birth to a second son. And the Lord said, name him Lo-Ammi, not my people, for Israel is not my people, and I am not their God. And yet the time will come when Israel's people will be like the sands of the seashore, too many to count. Then at that place where they were told, you're not my people, it will be said that you are the children of God. And then the people of Judah and Israel will unite together, and they will choose one leader for themselves, and they will return from exile together. What a day that will be, the day of Jezreel, when God will again plant his people in this land. All right, so as we get started about this, we have a guy named Hosea, and God has come to him, and he's told him, he said, hey, what I want you to do is I want you to go and marry a prostitute. If you want to get into more entertaining versions of that, just read the King James. It's a little more detailed than prostitute. It goes a little further. And as we get into this, the first thing I want you to see out of this story is the obedience of Hosea. Hosea is a prophet, but this is his life that's being used as an object lesson. That's hard for me to understand. It's like, we'll go and do this, and God is going to use Hosea's life to warn the people of Israel. So Hosea is in this, he's going to hurt in this relationship. I can't see a situation where he wins in this. Go marry someone who's not ever going to be faithful to you. Hosea is going to feel the sting of Gomer's unfaithfulness. Hosea is going to be the talk of the town. Let's just be real. And him staying with Gomer is going to make him look foolish in everyone else's eyes. But it comes down to the most basic understanding of obedience. And you know what the basic understanding of obedience is? It's this. God said. God said. Some people have said it this way. They say, God said it, I believe it, and that settles it. But you know what? The truth of it is that if God said it, it doesn't matter if you believe it. It already settles it. Hosea is a committed servant to the Lord. And as he is going to do right, no matter if Gomer does it or not, because his love for God supersedes his love for Gomer. And I think that when you're married to somebody, that you know what? Your love for God supersedes your love for them, because if you'll love God correctly, guess what? You'll love your spouse correctly too. Because God's never going to let you down. But you know what? Your spouse may let you down sometime. Does that mean I love them any less? Does that mean I care for them any less? They might say something that hurts my feelings from time to time. Does that mean I get to say something hurtful back to them? It's not supposed to. Why? Because my love is not rooted in their response to me. My love is rooted in my commitment to God. Because of my commitment to God, we don't give people what they deserve. Why? Because God is not giving us what we deserve. How we treat people has nothing to do with how they treat us. It has everything to do with who Christ is in us. We've already decided how we are to respond to others based off our relationship to Christ. And isn't it interesting? Now, this is interesting that God says, in one version it says a promiscuous woman, so that's another really nice way of saying it that's not King James. But go and marry a promiscuous woman. And what's funny, I've always thought this is interesting. God doesn't say, go marry Gomer. He doesn't. He says, go marry a promiscuous woman. And Hosea says, I know just the one. Boy, doesn't that say something about who Gomer is? It's like, hey, go marry, I'll just say the King James word is whoredom. That's what it says. It says, go marry a woman of whoredom. And so it says, go marry a prostitute. Go marry someone who is completely unfaithful. And it's up to you, Hosea, who you choose. And he says, Gomer it is. Evidently, God left it up to Hosea, and Hosea knew just the woman who was up to task. It goes to show you that, you know what, Gomer's not hidden. She's not hidden. Why? Because everybody knows her reputation. Everybody. Have you ever had somebody, and you might have been that person, who when they got saved, it was almost like, I don't know. I know what they do. I know where they've been. I know just who they've been with. I know what they've got going in their life. It hadn't been that long ago that I seen them at the Talladega racetrack, and they didn't really look like Christ. And everybody knows Gomer's reputation. Everybody knows the places that she's laid down, and they know who she's laid with. And what's sad is there's a whole lot of men on that list that know her. In the biblical sense. And I bet people are even talking about the children that Hosea has. And they're probably saying, those aren't his. That one doesn't look anything like him. Now Hosea's life will live out the message that God is saying to Israel. That's a big act of obedience. For you to know that you're about to commit your life to someone who is not committed to you at all. And God says, this is how I want to represent my people Israel. This is who they are, and this is how they've acted to me. Flip over to chapter 2. God begins speaking his charges against Israel. And his charges are really lived out through the life of Gomer. All right. Verse 2, it says, but now bring charges against Israel, your mother, for she is no longer my wife, and I am no longer her husband. Tell her to remove the prostitute's makeup from her face and the clothing that exposes her breast. Otherwise, I will strip her as naked as she was on the day she was born, and I will leave her to die of thirst, as in a dry and barren wilderness. And I will not leave her children, for they were conceived in prostitution. Their mother is a shameless prostitute and became pregnant in shameful ways. She said, I'll run after other lovers and sell myself to them for food and water, for clothing of wool and linen, and for olive oil and drinks. And for this reason, I will fence her in with thorn bushes. I will block her path with a wall to make her lose her way. And when she runs after her other lovers, she won't be able to catch them. She will search for them, but not find them. Then she will think, I might as well return to my husband, for I was better off with him than I am now. And she doesn't realize it was I who gave her everything she has, the grain, the new wine, the olive oil. I even gave her silver and gold, but she gave all my gifts to Baal. But now I will take back the ripened grain and new wine, and I generously provided each harvest season. And I will take away the wool and the linen clothing I gave her to cover her nakedness. I will strip her naked in public while other lovers look on. No one will be able to rescue her from my hands. I will put an end to her annual festivals, her new moon celebrations, and her Sabbath days, all her appointed festivals. I'm almost done here. I will destroy her grapevines and fig trees, things she claims her lovers gave her. I will let them grow in tangled thickets where only wild animals will eat the fruit. And I will punish her for all those times when she burned incense to her images of Baal, when she put on earrings and jewels and went out to look for her lovers, but forgot all about me. says the Lord. And it's so sad. It's so sad. If we look at Gomer, she's running away to other lovers, and it's basically saying that Hosea's children are not even his, that they were conceived in prostitution. And it's completely devastating when you think about if that's the way that Gomer is acting toward Hosea, that's the way that God sees Israel is acting toward him. And then it gets really peculiar because something happens that's unexpected to me. And when I read it, I literally did. I got tears in my eyes when I read this. Look down at verse 14. This is right after God has just given this big to-do about what she's done wrong. But then I will win her back once again. I will lead her into the desert and speak tenderly to her. I will return her vineyards to her and transform the valley of trouble into a gateway of hope. And she will give herself to me there as she did long ago when she was young, when I freed her from captivity in Egypt. And when the day comes, says the Lord, a while ago he just said, you're not going to call me husband anymore. It says, you will call me husband instead of master. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. The way Gomer's acting, the way Israel's acting, all of this doesn't make sense to me. Why would someone have to win back someone who is unfaithful to them? Why would you even try? If someone was treating you that way, if someone was dragging you through the mud, if somebody loves somebody else, you know what I've always said, if you want to go love somebody else, just go love them. Don't string me along. But he says what? He says, I'm going to go and I'm going to win you back. And you know what? Winning someone back takes work. I don't know if you've ever had to do it. I don't know what your relationships are like, but winning someone back, it takes work. It takes extra effort. You can pay close attention to the details of the one you're pursuing. That's right. You'll wonder what they're doing, what makes them tick, what makes them happy, because you'll want to do those things. Why? Because you want to be the object of their affection again. And here, God of the universe is saying, you have been completely unfaithful to me. You have not cared about me. You have been like a prostitute. You're laying down in the middle of the day with people where everybody can see you. You're supposed to be my wife, but you're not acting like it. And all of these things. And he says, but you know what? After a time, I'm going to win you back. Who's worth winning at this point? She's the one that's being unfaithful to you. She's the one that's making a mockery of you. She's the one laying down with dogs in dark places. And why are you speaking tenderly to her? You should be angry. She's hurt you. She's made your love look foolish. But God says, no, I'm coming for Israel. Just like Hosea is coming for Gomer, God is saying that's the way it looks. It's because I'm coming for Israel. I'm going to love you anyway. And he answers back to what he said in chapter 1 when he named Hosea's children. Remember, he said, you're not my people any longer. Look here at the way chapter 2 ends. At that time, I will plant a crop of Israelites and raise them for myself, and I will show love to those I called not loved, and to those I called not my people. I will say, now you are my people, and they will reply, you are my God. He said, my love is going to be it's going to fill you so much that my love is going to reestablish your identity. You don't think that, you're out there and you're having your own lovers and you're having your own things and you're doing whatever you want. And you would think that you would choose to be faithful. But I'm not going to come to you while you're being faithful. I'm going to come while you're being unfaithful. And I'm going to love you in such a way that it's going to drive you back to me. God is going to redefine his people, and his love for them is going to draw them back to him. He's going to say, now you are my people, and their only response is going to be, you are my God. Why? Because God is redeeming his people. And they didn't just up and decide to be faithful. It ain't like they said, okay, we're going to be faithful now. And he said, okay, well now I'll love you and I'll take you in. He said, no, I'm going to find you at your nastiness and I'm going to love you then. They respond to his advances to establish relationship with him right in the middle of their unfaithfulness. And I believe this is where Romans 5:8 comes into play. If I can even flip to that next one. But Romans 5:8 says God demonstrates his own love for us in this. I love that it uses the words demonstrates. Demonstrates God showing his love. God's not just talking about his love, but it shows us his love for us when he says that while we were still sinners, that Christ died for us. In other words, you ain't got to get it together before I'm going to come and love you. You don't have to get it together before I'm going to speak tenderly to you, before I'm going to care about you, before I am going to come and I'm going to love you with such a fierceness that you're going to say, you know what, you're my God. Because the redeeming love of God doesn't have anything to do with how you have behaved. Because in light of him, it's never going to be good. It has everything to do with his relentless pursuit of you. Now, if you can, go with me to chapter 3. I want you to understand, chapter 3 of Hosea starts out, and Gomer is gone. She's not at home. That means she's out with another man. She's doing her own thing. She's pursuing relationships that are outside of her marriage covenant to Hosea. Hosea has every reason not to be with her. I mean, come on. She never has been faithful the whole time. And Gomer's out doing her own thing. She's not at home. She's living as a prostitute. And you know what happens in that time? Someone didn't just purchase the act. They purchased the person. So like if you had a prostitute, they're yours. They belong to you. Hosea chapter 3 starts out like this. Then the Lord said to me, go and love your wife again, even though she commits adultery with another lover. I've been like, God, that's hard. This will illustrate that the Lord still loves Israel, even though the people have turned to other gods and love to worship them. So I bought her back for 15 pieces of silver and 5 bushels of barley and a measure of wine. Then the Lord said to me, go and love your wife again, even though she commits adultery with another lover. Oh, sorry, that's the same verse. He says, verse 4, let's see. So I bought her back for 15 pieces of silver and 5 bushels of barley and a measure of wine. Then I said to her, you must live in my house for many days and stop your prostitution. And during this time, you will not have sexual relations with anyone, not even with me. And this shows that Israel will... Israel will go a long time without a king or prince and without sacrifices, sacred pillars, priests, or even idols. But afterward, the people will return and devote themselves to the Lord and God and to David's descendants, their king. And in the last days, they will tremble in awe of the Lord and of his goodness. Hosea is showing God in action. Look, his wife is literally in the bed of somebody else. And it says that he tracks his wife down, that he finds her. She's with another man. She is his wife, and you would think that he could just go out and say, you know what? She's my wife. She's coming with me. But he doesn't do it like that. Instead, he purchases his unfaithful wife back. Not for a little bit. That's a pretty great sum, what it's talking about there. And he says, you know what? I need my wife back. Here is all of the money that it takes to bring my unfaithful, lousy wife who doesn't love me, who doesn't care for me, back. I'm going to give you everything. It sounds a lot like what God did when he said, you know what? I don't know any other way to redeem you than I'll send a piece of myself and my son Jesus Christ to a cross, who will go and lay down his life for people who don't love him, who put him up on the very cross. And you go, oh, okay, now I'm starting to understand the cost of what this redemption is. And so he goes out and he purchases his wife back. He pays for his unfaithful wife. And he shamefully buys her back from her lover. And she's not choosing to go with him. She's chosen to go with her lover. But Hosea has went and he's found her. Like, it ain't like she was out there and she was doing her own thing. And she said, oh, I need to go back home. Please, Hosea, please buy me back from my lover. Buy me back from this person because I've messed up. I've failed you. I've done all these things. No. He says, I'm going to go to where you are. And I'm going to go to you in your messed upness. And even though you're not really ready for me to be here, you're not really emotionally ready to leave the things that you love and go back with me, at that point there, I'm going to pay the price for you. And I'm going to reestablish that commitment back to you. And so Hosea has went out and he's found her. He's paid to have her back. And he's establishing her as his wife, not giving her the title of prostitute. When he bought her back, he didn't buy her back as Gomer the prostitute. He bought her back as Hosea's wife. That's two different titles. That's two different purposes. That's an equal partner. That's saying, hey, I know that you've messed up. I know that you've done wrong. I know that you're out doing your own thing. But you know, I'm not buying you back so that you'll be a prostitute and slave to me. I'm buying you back as my wife. She's not brought back to a stranger's bed. She's brought back to her husband's home. This Gomer's a wild character. She just keeps choosing everything but faithfulness to her husband. She's running from one bed to the next, giving herself away to pleasure. She's always consuming, and she's never satisfied. Gomer is perfect to represent Israel. If you read the Bible, you kind of know the story of Israel, and if you spent any time in the Old Testament, you'll see these patterns of unfaithfulness. It's like when you look at that verse that talks about, it's in the New Testament, it talks about as a fool returns to his folly. So a dog returns to his vomit, as a fool returns to his folly. This is kind of how Israel is. They just keep coming back. You'll see how they're never satisfied. God literally rains down manna from heaven for them when they're wandering in the wilderness daily to feed them. Then after a while, they complain because they don't have any meat to eat. So then he rains down meat for them, almost so much that they're walking around in it. And then at one point, Moses goes up on the mountain to speak with God, and he comes down, and now all these people that he's been leading through the wilderness, they've created a calf, and they're out of gold, and they're worshiping it. Sounds a little bit like an unfaithful lover. Only it's God that they're not loving, who's redeemed them, who's bought them back, who's brought them out of slavery, who's cared for them. And they might as well be jumping from bed to bed because their behavior is unfaithful and they're consumed in selfishness a lot of the time. And as time passes, it's wild that this story is just prevalent over and over. The story, even though we've heard it over and over, that even to this day, it's still relevant because this story is still being lived out. The church has got a lot of lovers. Church has got a lot of lovers. There's a lot of things that are pulling people away from the church. And it's not like when you say church, it's like, I'm not just saying that people aren't coming to Sunday morning attendance. You know, they're not attending every Sunday. I'm talking about people have other things that are more important than God. And I'm not saying that everybody's got a statue of Buddha in their home and that everybody's praying to Muhammad. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is they are praying to other things and they are living ways and other that put God down here and put whatever they have up here. And people say all the time, they say, oh, I've given my life to the Lord. So you know what? Lord, God's up on the throne. But then on Monday morning, they take him right back down and they get right back up on it. And then they say, oh, it's not, nothing is important as God. But then I'm going to hurt some feelings. They got travel ball. They got other things. They got different things that all during the week are always more important than God. And it doesn't have to be just travel. It could be anything. It could be Netflix. I'm just saying you got these things that are taking up the time that you're supposed to giving to God. And you're saying, oh, I'm going to put all of these things away. And what's bad is most of the time it doesn't happen. And so God goes to look for them in the places that they're hiding to do the things they ought to not be doing. Oh, wow. So if you're here this morning and you're asking the question, who is Gomer? Well, I found her this morning. I did. And I put her over here, and she's been real still the entire service. It's wonderful who Gomer is this morning. Let's see. This is who Gomer is. This is who Gomer is. We're wondering who she is. Who could this person be? Why is Gomer out here? Who is this? But you know what the truth is? We're the unfaithful ones. We're the unpredictable ones. We're the casual ones. Hey, we're the loose ones. And no matter who and no matter where you stand in front of the mirror this morning, it's still going to be the same. There will always be the picture of Gomer staring back at you. When I walk out it this morning, I'm like, well, who's Gomer? Surely it's somebody who's been unfaithful. Surely it's somebody who's... And I go, who is Gomer? Gomer looks a lot like me. Gomer looks like me a lot of times when I'm chasing the things of this world and I'm going after everything but the one thing. And I've got my mind on everything else but what I need to be. Gomer looks like me when I've laid the Bible down and I haven't picked it up and I haven't read it and I haven't taken the knowledge that it has for me. And you know what? And because I haven't read it, I went off all these other paths. Gomer looks like me when I've watched the things I shouldn't have watched, when I've did the things I shouldn't have done. And you know what God looks like? God looks like Hosea, who keeps coming back and paying the price for him. God looks like Hosea, who says, hey, I'm just going to go to you, not while you're looking for me, not while you're caring about me, not while I'm going to go for you, and I'm not going to ask you to come back as a prostitute to me. I'm not going to ask you to come back as a slave to me. I'm going to ask you to come back as my wife. And you know what? I'm willing to pay the price. And God himself, in his richness, he would pay the price that would be his own son. And I don't understand that kind of love. I'm created in his image, but there's a whole lot of me that ain't like him. There's always going to be the story of them faithful. And there will never be a time there hasn't been the Hosea in your life that comes back for you. Because God in his great love goes out while we're dead in sin, while we're serving other things. And when we're in our sin, he sends Jesus to make a way for us and pay the price for the sin that we owed. And it says that Jesus will return for his bride one day. And it says he's coming back for a spotless bride. He's coming back for the church, his bride. And how it would, in the world, I'm looking at the church and I'm going, how are we ever going to be spotless? I look at the things that we've got going on and I think, how is he going to come back for a spotless bride? He's going to come back for nobody. There's not any of us who are going to be spotless. And the answer is in the cross. Look here, Ephesians 1:7. In him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sin in accordance with the riches of God's grace. Because if it wasn't for the cross, we wouldn't be fit to be the bride of Christ. So just as much as I can look in that mirror and I can see Gomer, I can look in that mirror and I can see the cross of Christ that makes me clean enough to be the spotless bride. He's the only one who makes us worthy. And just like Hosea went back and bought Gomer, God sent Jesus and bought us back. And he brought us in as sons when we should have been slaves. And in the same way, Hosea brought Gomer back and established her as his wife when all she had ever acted like was a prostitute. Hosea's actions are the thing that gave Gomer worth. And because of his love and faithfulness, and because he went out and he won her back, she has a home to be brought back to. And you know what I would tell you this morning? Jesus has done that for you. Jesus he has brought you back, he has bought you, and he has given you worth. And you know what he did? He went and prepared a home for you. In the same way, Hosea has a home for her. All she has to do is come and be his wife. God has done the same thing for you. He's carried this prized possession. He's laid it down and he said, this will pay the price for all of the sin they will ever commit. I'm going to give you a piece of what? I can't give you a piece of something earthly. I have to give you a very piece of myself that will pay the price for the sin that you cannot pay. And he says, I'm going to give it to you. And he established worth in you when he did that at that moment. Because he won you back. He's giving you worth. And it says, he says that he goes and he is preparing a place for us, because if he's gone and prepared a place for us, he will come back again. Just like Hosea went out and he purchased her and he brought her back to his home. Jesus is going to come through those clouds and he's going to bring you back to his home. Cadre said this morning, he said, heaven is not our consolation prize. Heaven is the prize. Not because we deserve it, but because we belong to him. If you read, Hosea goes on and on and on and on, and it talks about Israel's unfaithfulness, but you could literally plug your name in there, and it's you. It's me. That's why I said you could look in there into the mirror this morning, and you're always going to see Gomer. You're always going to see your unfaithfulness. You're always going to realize that you're the one. But you can also look in there this morning and you can see the cross of Christ that says, you know what, I'm paying for your redemption and I want you. Worship team, would you come this morning? We are running from redemption. It's there. It's offered to us. It's freely there for us. Just like Hosea was offering his relationship with Gomer there, it was there for her. All she had to do was come back home. And I think the obvious answer this morning is all you got to do is come back home. And you know what? You can say, well, you don't know, Pastor Matt, the things that I'm involved in, the things that I've got going on, and the things that are really hard for me to lay down. And I will say, well, you know, it can't be a whole lot worse than Gomer. She's pretty bad. If she's the first one that Hosea thought of when they said, go get a promiscuous woman, she must have been doing some stuff. Her reputation must be known. So guess what? Everything in your life this morning, nothing compares. But the cross of Christ will wipe it all free. John 3:16 says, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, his only one, that whosoever believeth in him didn't have to perish, but they could have eternal life. You can have that this morning. This can be the beginning. You don't have to chase after other lovers and other things and always put him at last. You know what? You can run to him, and you know what he'll do? He'll run to you. And I bet you he's like the father of the prodigal son who set out every afternoon, I believe, and he looked down that road for his son that might come home one day. And then when he saw a glimpse of him, he ran to him. I don't believe there's anything in here this morning that's going to disqualify him from running to you. Let's stand this morning. The altar's open. I'm going to come down in a minute, and I would love to pray with anyone this morning. Anybody that's struggling, anybody that wants to renew that relationship, anybody that says, hey, I'm that person, I haven't been living up to it. But you know what? I'm telling you, everybody in this room this morning will look in this mirror and they'll see the problem. And you know what? We're all the same. We're all Gomer. So don't think one of us is any better than the rest of us. This morning, altar is open as they sing.
If love endured that ancient cross, how precious is my Savior's blood. The beauty of heaven wrapped in my shame. The image of love upon